All right, we give it one more minute for lollygaggers to join us. Good to see you all here today.
Just drop a
Peg.
lollygaggers, Isaac.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read about that on the World Wide Web one time. Monty is going to be discussing a topic that I'm going to just briefly tee up because I don't want to steal your thunder, Monty, but creating demand through content. And let me just say this, Monty, I've known you for a while, and it took me quite a bit of time to really get what you were saying with that phrase. My background is more on the sales piece. And so when I'm hearing creating demand, that means like one thing to me. And then when I hear creating demand through content, I'm just like, what? It really took me, like, even working together, I'm gonna say like 6 months for it to go like, oh, I get what that means now, kind of. So you got your slide deck and stuff, but if you could help us all, because I need help here, could you just give some language around what we even mean when we say the phrase creating demand through content? And I'll let you take it from here. Thanks for your time. Oh,
yeah,
really
sure.
quick note. This is very important. I need to know if everyone loved the emoji, the GIF in the email of mine. Like, should I upload that to Tenor and make it public and available in the public domain?
Yeah.
All right. Take it from here, boss.
Well, I appreciate it. Good. Okay. So what do we mean by creating demand through content? Demand are people that are wanting to have a conversation with you and ultimately do business with you. So most of us that are on this call, if not all of us, are using LinkedIn to try and do business. And we're trying to find new clients. We're trying to grow our businesses. And LinkedIn is one of the primary tools and strategies that we implement to be able to do that. So the great thing about LinkedIn is it covers both marketing and sales at the same time. You can creating demand for me is how do we get people to reach out to us and initiate conversations with us instead of us going out and trying to initiate conversation with other people. So LinkedIn is a fantastic platform that if you have the right strategies, that can actually happen and does for us. And I'll walk us through some things that hopefully will help you create your own demand. So the first and the primary thing that you absolutely must do is understand your customer front to back. This is something that we find a lot with our clients, that they have an idea of what their customer is. They have an idea of what their customer faces and kind of where they're at, so to speak. But we typically address people based on our own knowledge and what we assume or what we put on that potential customer than what they actually are dealing with and say themselves. So this becomes a lot harder if you have multiple verticals. If you're in multiple industries, trying to service multiple industries, and this is a difficult thing to do with coaches and stuff like that. So the best thing that you can do if you want to create demand through your content is get very narrow. The more narrow and the more individualized you can speak to somebody, the greater chance that you're going to be to have them come back and talk to you because they're going to relate to you. Second thing is you have to understand your sales cycle. We say this on this call quite a bit here recently, but 95% of your market is not going to be ready to buy today. So if only 5% is in the bottom part of your sales funnel, that is where you focus your outreach and where you're going and trying to initiate conversation with people. But the purpose, what we like to tell people is the purpose for having those conversations sometimes isn't really to close a deal today, even though you may be trying to look for that 5%. It's really trying to discover where they are in your sales funnel. Okay, so let's talk through the sales funnel that you have, and where your market is coming from, so to speak. So if 95% resides all up here, they are going through this process of awareness. All right, so I have a problem. I discover that I have a problem, and I want to seek out somebody that's going to solve that problem for me. But there's a process under which they go through: awareness, interest. They're going to do their own research. And by the way, if you're in sales, in today's market, you're dealing with a much more educated customer. They don't need you to educate them. So the more they're going to go out and find the information that they need online through people that they talk to, that's how they're educating themselves. Same through consideration. They're going to set up, they're going to talk to their peers. They will set up, meetings with you, have conversations with you. But you have to understand where somebody falls within this sales funnel, so that you can then create the content within those specific areas that's going to move them through that funnel without your conversation. So you want to educate your market, you want to create your demand, or create your awareness, and you want to be able to speak to the different phases that they're in, so that you can, in a sense, nurture them into you. The other thing that we find a lot with our own clients when we're working with content is that they focus too much on what they do over the problem that they solve. So this gets back to understanding your client really well and where they are in their sales funnel. Because if you can solve the problem for them, and in B2B, it's all relationship based. If you understand where they're at and what you can solve, then you become a value. Okay, so if you don't create any value, if you're just out there communicating all the different things that you do, that's good information for people, but it does not address the very specific thing that you can solve for them. So that's why you need to get more narrow, more narrow, more focused on who it is that you're talking to and where they're at today, so that you can speak directly to it. If they see you as a value add, they are going to seek you out for conversation. One of the great ways to do this in discovering where they're at, the problems that they have, is to use your sales conversations. So when you're talking to people in direct messaging, always have it be question related. Don't pitch in any way. It's going to turn people off immediately. You're not looking to pitch. What you're looking to do is discover where they are within your sales funnel and the problems that they're facing. So what questions are you asking? What questions are they asking? Okay, what objections are being raised? Are there call to actions that you find that work? All of this is going to be primary fodder, if you would, that you can use in your content, that you can distribute through your company page and through your personal page, through your website. Everywhere that your customer is going to be, you want to address where they are at and the things that they are raising first. People do business with those that they know, with those that they like, and with those that they trust. Okay, so if you can address those questions, if you can solve their problems, then you are going to be first in mind when they're ready to have the conversations about who they're going to use to solve that problem. I'll show you an example of what you can do with your company pages here in a minute too. So you absolutely have to be where your people are. I'm using a phrase from Little Mermaid. It's wisdom. focus on one primary channel, try and create a space there for yourself, right? But you're going to have to use a multiple prong approach when you're dealing with your customers, because they may be focused in one area, but they may be out in another. They may be on other channels. So use social media, use email, use your website, try and get in front of them where they are. With each phase of your funnel, they may be in different places. But in terms of your content, you do want to focus on one area because you have to be consistent, which is where we're getting to this. You absolutely have to show up. If you're not there, people are not going to seek you out. So consistency is one of the primary things that people miss. Doesn't have to be every day, not necessarily, but you just have to consider, is the person that is going to seek me out going to be there today? And is that the day that I'm not there? Right. So pick a time for your posting, make sure you're there on a daily basis, at least Monday through Friday. Create the kind of content within your funnels that's going to resonate on your website and lead to a call to action to draw them in. You're trying to get conversations started, but you have to be there for that conversation to start. Okay, so that's, the last thing that I wanted to say in this before we get on to our panel is make sure that when you're creating content, you create it as though it's you, okay? You have to create likability. That one slide where I said people do business with people that they know, like, and trust, the like factor is really huge. So on social media, you want to combine both solving problems with your own personality and not being afraid to do some things that are just part of your personal life. Okay, because people will relate to that and gravitate towards it. So it doesn't have to be all business all the time. You want to make sure that you are creating a likability around yourself, which is why when you go back to your own personal profile and stuff, it's better to have a picture of your face there that's pleasant over a flower or over Baby Yoda or something like that. So I did want to provide you guys with an example of what you can do with your company pages. Okay. Don't forget them or put them off because they're extremely valuable. And so I want you to just pay attention to analytics. Isaac and I have been really focused on building up our company page, our following, and using that as a resource for us. In the last 30 days, we have 65 button clicks that goes directly to our website. Okay. 78,000 post impressions. You can get really good post impressions through your company page content. If you're putting the right content out there that people like and will look at, you can still get great views. And sometimes I can get better views on my company page than I can get on my personal posts. Now, you still have to get engagement. So if you have team members that you can bring in to help you with this, that's the best way to do it. We ask our entire team to go out and comment on each post. And then we also, from time to time, share those posts over to our personal profile. As you do that, you're going to create brand awareness, but you're also going to create your own thought leadership. So if I share this post, I wrote this post, so I don't need to share it to my personal profile. But if I did, and I have before plenty of times, I want to add to this. I want to make my own post from it. So if I view this as a member, go to our posts, I can share this here. Now I want to share my own thoughts around this post. But it's great for teams because now you have a resource for content that if you have the right strategy around this, you are solving the problems that your market has. You're reaching them where they are at in the funnel, and you can actually begin to shorten your sales cycle. So if you have a company and if you have employees, I highly recommend that you get a plan or a strategy to use your company content to not only elevate the thought leadership of your people or your employees, but then to use this to not only drive traffic to your website, but elevate your brand authority on LinkedIn. So with that, we'll jump into our panel discussion and see how our panel goes about creating thought leadership and different techniques and strategies that you employ.
I'll chime in first. Hey, can you share that slide with that funnel real quick?
Yes.
So really quick background for me, right? My background is going to be more in sales. And when I first met Monty before we did the merger, we're mostly, focusing, doing our best to try and figure out where people are at in the buying cycle. If they're ready to buy, give them the right call to action. If they're not, give them a more top mid funnel call to action to try and stay top of mind and stuff. And when I first hear like creating demand through content, it, like I said earlier, it didn't really click until I saw something like this happen where we have material on the company page and I engage with it or share it personally. It goes out to all my network. And in my mind before, that's like, hey, I'm staying top of mind. I'm building awareness. And those things are totally true. The piece of that multifaceted diamond that I wasn't getting was the creating demand part. And so an example would be like, if I share something about how much time people need to spend on a platform to get leads and the hidden cost of that, and that's what's going out there, I'm not just staying top of mind, I'm not just building awareness. People will read that who I've never spent any time engaging with. They'll read it and go, oh, shoot, I didn't realize really how much time I was wasting doing X, Y, and Z. There's a big hidden cost there. I now really want this solution. And I didn't even realize that I was kind of like they wouldn't use this language as a buyer, but they're like maybe mid-bottom of funnel. They had no idea. And then suddenly they have demand, and the people that they're maybe talking to or their coworkers, they share that, and that creates demand. And since I was the point of that like raw light bulb moment, I'm the go-to, and it translates into sales. So the creating demand plus it's shortening the like buying cycle. That was my experience, and I didn't understand how the content piece played out in that kind of real life story until more recently. So that's been kind of my like, oh wow, that's really worth the time.
Yeah, definitely.
You can stop sharing the screen if you want. Thank you so much.
Okay. The one thing,
go ahead.
One tip I want to say with your company page posts as well, that if you guys begin to engage your company page posts, engage as you, not the company. So when you're replying and stuff like that, reply as you, because it does share back to your network, and they will see you instead of your brand, so to speak. So again, people do business with people, your faces. So they're much more going to respond to you on a company page comment when they see you as opposed to your logo. So just one little tip for that.
All right. Any other panelists want to chime in? Question, and Viveka, since you're a panelist, you don't need to raise your hand. You can just, this is your I'm the boss time.
Okay. Well, I was just going to sort of talk about the, being consistent and showing up and creating demand that Monty talked about. I mean, when you're creating demand and you're in content, you want to, as he said, you want to go as narrow as you possibly can. It's hard sometimes, but But when you do that, I mean, make sure that you also use the conversational tone. I still work with lawyers in my case where they're using sort of that formalistic. I mean, in that industry, it tends to be very formal. And so it's work to try and sort of bring it into a conversational tone, but also remember to be bold enough to use your own voice and your vibe so that you narrow even further within an industry to a certain, I mean, we're talking psychographics here, but there's certain personality types that are going to be drawn to you. So getting out of that neutrality where you're trying to please everybody and essentially speaking to no one because you're trying to please so many people. So narrowing down is really, really important. And then I think David O'Neill had mentioned something about having a call to action. You know, right off the bat, having that call to action it can be a micro call. You're just, all you want to do the first few times really, at least as far as content creating that demand is asking to continue the conversation. So being very patient with that and just having those micro calls, because I think when I mention call to action to my clients, they go, oh, okay. So I'm going to say, so here's my number. Let's get on a call. You know, no. We're talking about micro actions here and building that rapport and that trust that you were talking about, Monty. So that's
we call it small asks. Right. It's you want to get people to accept something small. Once somebody will accept something small, then you can get them to accept bigger things. Right. So how do you do that? You got to offer people value. You've got to give people a reason to accept something from you, and that something from you has to be something that they want. So your content has to deliver that as well. Right. You know, the more you are giving people what they want, that's the reason why people build up, quote unquote, a following. Now, most people build up followings just for the sake of having following. You don't even need to care about a following if it's not something that or someone that's part of a business that you can do business with, right? So following is good because it may if you get interaction from people, it may make those posts be viewed further. But again, if you're doing business with LinkedIn, you only really care about the people that you can do business with. Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Right. Those micro actions that we're talking about, somebody asked, can you give an example of a small ask or a micro commitment, as I call it? Sometimes it's something, it's almost reverse engineering. I mean, you know where you want to end, you want to continue the conversation and engagement. So you reverse engineer from a curiosity point that somebody's going to be eager to respond to, that they're going to want to close the loop on. You reverse engineer some of the content from that point and get them, build it up to a point where they say, I need to close that. She's asking a valid point here, and I feel strongly about this. So a lot of times I find the bold pieces or content, they're a little bit, pushing certain points. That's going to pique curiosity and it's going to get a reaction from somebody. And our psyche is such that we naturally as human beings want to close the loop. You don't like ending with a question. We all want to close it. So just make it something that's going to kind of capture that interest and that need to close that somehow, to continue.
If I can chime in. So Viveka, the whole point of taking a stance, like you're not there to please everyone and you're not a robot. So if you just agree with everything that you're seeing posted on social media and LinkedIn, you're not standing out. I did a post like in 2016 and I took a stance that resumes were dinosaurs and that we should get rid of them. This is in 2016, and that we should just submit video resumes. And that post, for me, from little old me back then, it kind of went viral with like 20,000 views and a ton of engagement because I took a stance. Right. So I think the point, like, if you believe in something, take the stance on it and share your opinion is one way to get content that is going to get engagement. And then Monty, you said, I think what we all know, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. If you don't share who you are, they can't get to know you. Especially for the people I work with. I'm working with retirement people and tax people right now. Talk about boring, right? It's kind of like lawyers, right? You got lawyers, accountants, and retirement. Like, oh, that's boring content. We're sharing tax tip 109. But when you share who you are, how you got into this role and just really about who you are. What do you do for fun? And if you can tie that back into your business, the guy that I'm working with, he has 225 followers on LinkedIn or 225 connections. Literally, he's starting off, you guys. Yeah. We shared a personal post last month that is at like 4,000, right? We shared we did a poll, and I don't know how this happened. Someone tell me. I created a post for him about retirement and how people aren't retiring. And the question was, Vivica, I asked a question in the poll, like, are you going to, retire at the retirement age? Yes, no, maybe part-time. And then in the post, in the text part is like, more people are looking for like less hours when they hit retirement age. I said, can we find you on, we've been talking to people. A lot of people said they're going to find something that's more casual and less stressful, like working at a golf course, pouring wine at a wine club, or working the tickets, working at a sporting events like spring training or football games. And so that sparked a whole flood of conversations. And Monty, Isaac, and any other experts, it got picked up by LinkedIn News. Wow. So
it was timely, and it was. Yeah, I'm not surprised that LinkedIn News picked that up. I mean, that's a conversation we're seeing a lot.
So does anyone know how things get picked up? Because I was shocked, and I sent him a text. I'm like, oh my God, like your post just got picked up for LinkedIn News. Like, this is huge. And it just took off. And he's like, I'm like, you go in and you reply to every comment. I go, and then the next, I was like, you go in and you send connection requests, because this is the perfect opportunity for this newbie, right, to expand his network.
Yeah. I don't think the LinkedIn News has anything to do with the algorithm, so to speak, and how much it gets picked up or anything, more than it is the strategy that the people that are creating the LinkedIn News have and what they want to push throughout the month.
For that month, okay.
Day. But I don't know that as fact. So, but one of the things, I think one of the reasons why that blew up goes back to one of the biggest mistakes that I see that both companies and individuals make on social media. And that is that they spend all of their time top of funnel education, right? And what they will do is they will take the approach of, I've got all my website content over here that's like almost entirely awareness, education stuff, and just take that one-to-one, dump it on social media. And now I'm doing social media. Well, it completely goes against what social media is. It's social media, meaning we want to engage one another. So you can educate by making it engaging. And your company pages, if you're doing posts on your company pages, that has to be engaging too. It can't just be, here's the info today, tomorrow. Here's the info tomorrow. You've got to find a way to be able to educate your market by engaging them. And then in your personal posts, same thing. When I think the reason why that post did so well is it struck a chord, and it allowed people, it gave people a reason to respond, right?
Right.
And you asked an open-ended question, not a closed question that just kills it. So I don't personally think that you have to have a call to action on every post that you make.
I agree. I don't think every post, but I do agree that you need to have it on some of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because otherwise your audience won't know what to do.
Exactly. The call to action. Now, the thing that you do need to have on every single post is basically, and it doesn't even have to be stated a specific call to action. It's just a call to action to engage in that post, right? So it can just be as simple as asking an open-ended question, and then, hopefully getting the first person to respond. What I found on social media too is a lot of people don't want to be the first one to respond. So they'll put a like, but they won't share a comment. So give people a reason to comment.
And follow that post. I mean,
Mhm.
intermittently, it does take time, but man, does it pay off. And that's what I've really been focusing on these last 6 months. And this is where I have literally developed client relationships and really high quality relationships. When I sit and sort of intermittently look back on that post, make sure that I then engage and respond to a comment and continue the dialogue. And then suddenly others are chiming in and we have a long thread. And, that does take time, but make sure to keep an eye on it. So you're not just throwing it out there and you have whatever call to action or enticement that you have to continue some sort of engagement. I mean, make sure that you pop back in and see and genuinely respond to somebody who's giving you some time to give you a thought or so about what you've posted. That's really important too.
100%. And what I would add to that is make sure that your engagement in those comments continue the conversation, right? And keep it going, because and the posts that I've had do the best, where I've had like 100 comments, people come in there and are all over it, are the very ones that I am coming back and I am continuing that conversation in the comments by asking those people questions and by getting more of their thoughts out, right? When you can have a post that has one conversation that has 5 people involved in that comment that is having a conversation, that post is going to do better than any other post for you, whether it gets the views or not, because all of those comments are creating content for you and just creating your likability, trust, expertise, and authority that creates that demand back to you.
And you think about it, I mean, this is real life. You go out and you speak to people. You don't throw out a statement and the provocative or not, or engaging or not, and then walk away, right? You stick around. Exactly. Other people chime in. You have this conversation and you get into it, for better, for worse, but you have engagement. That's what we do in real life. I mean, that's what we want to emulate here.
It totally is. I tell people all the time, treat LinkedIn like it's real life. So when I was like 22, I was security, believe it or not, for a Metallica concert at the Iowa State Fair.
Scary.
So I was crowd control. And what happened was fights would break out in the crowd. And how we knew that there was a fight was going on is that all of a sudden there would be like this mass herd of people that would collect in one area. Anytime we saw that, we knew we had to push our way through all those people and stop a fight, right? LinkedIn's the exact same way. If you start seeing a crowd of people show up on a post and they're all engaging, other people want to get involved, right? And they're going to jump into that conversation as well. It really emulates life just so perfectly if you use the strategy of life.
I'd like to chime in here and speak a little bit to those of us like myself who are not really naturally gifted at creating material. I tell Monty this all the time. I'm like, hey man, I'm not the guy to write something from scratch. It'll take me an hour. Maybe I can polish it up a little bit. That's not my wheelhouse. So for those, my hope is that those of you who it's applicable for, you'll leave today and say, you know what, I should be spending some time creating material that creates demand and sharing it wherever it's applicable. Today, we're focusing on LinkedIn. I think the challenge that you'll encounter, the sort of friction or wall, is going to be, so what do I say that creates demand? Like what are the things I should be saying? Like I get it. I should be making content, and I get it. It should be creating demand. But for me, in my business, my audience, what should I say or put out there that would create demand? What's that magic thing to do, right? And I think you can find inspiration in a number of different places. Off the top of my head, I'll list a couple, but I want to get into the overlap with your sales combos. So like you could go to reviews, you could go to like internal surveys, all that kind of stuff to get some feedback. But for like my role in business is I'm more involved in the sales conversations. And what you can do if you're a solopreneur, or if you have access to your sales team and you're in marketing, if you're a larger organization, is you can say, all right, let's have a recap on the sales convos. Like, what were the objections that came up this week? That's really helpful for writing your content to create demand. Or you could say, all right, sales reps, can you give me an example of a conversation that you were having and it's like the deer in the headlights, fogged eyes went away and the person you were talking to went, oh, now I get it. Then you need to take that conversation and replicate it in a marketing context. And so getting some feedback, having that open loop there with the sales reps on what did you say that made the light bulb go on? What are the objections? What got people talking? For me, that's an easy place to start in going, what kind of things should I do in my content that will create demand? I think that's low-hanging fruit and an easy win.
Let me jump in there and just say, let me tell you how you take that one single conversation and make all kinds of content from it that will create the demand. Okay, the single conversation where they had that aha moment. Okay, one, make a video of yourself sharing the story about how that aha moment happened and what it was. Make a post, text written post about that moment and what it is. Make a PDF post of what that is and the different steps that were in place of how that happened. Make a blog on your website that speaks to that particular issue and why that was an aha moment for them. Create an email that's going to go out to the rest of your target market about that aha moment, addressing that moment with everybody else, because in your target market and where they are in that funnel, somebody's going to be at that spot. Okay. And then when you're messaging people, direct messaging people, ask them the question about that aha moment and see if they understand that and have the same aha moment. Okay. Tweet the aha moment. There's just so many different things. One piece of comment can turn into literally 20 to 30 different posts, blogs, emails, DM conversations, everything that as people will see those, they will come back to you and talk to you about it.
Yeah, I want to jump back to what Isaac was saying about, creating demand and asking the right questions where, people sometimes get that deer in the headlight look. And just remove the word sales and say conversation. What was the last conversation? Isaac, talk about creating demand. You could riff on a story that started with you popping open a soda can and your kids going crazy, going, I want one. You shared that story last time. You said, as soon as you open a soda can, you pop it open, kids are quiet. They want one. There's something's going on. They're excited about that. Use that to show and explain how you create demand, with your content. So starting with a real life, occurrence that happens to all of us. There's never a loss of content or stories because we are living this life and we have stories and conversations. Use that as a starting point to pull that personality, that personability in, and then end it with sort of more of a business presentation or nugget or something. But yeah. Or David or Mike O'Neill, was showing pictures of your luxurious background, the ocean, where you're working right now and all that. That was beautiful. People were drawn to that. They're, transported them. And that's how you drew them in. And that was just you being where you are, doing what you're doing. Right?
Absolutely.
Now it is.
Okay. We're 15 minutes to wrap up time. So let's do due diligence and make time for the Q&A. So I saw a couple questions in the chat, but I want to give priority to hand raisers like Shireen. So let's do this. Do the Zoom raise your hand. If we can please keep the question asking under 30 seconds. And then let's try to keep the responses to under a minute or two, just so we can make sure that we give time to everyone. So Shireen, you are up first.
Okay, so I have a question really around a statement that you made, Monty, around like people don't need to be educated. Like we don't need to educate them. And I thought that just hit me like, okay, so, but then there's sprinkles of education. So if we're not really trying to educate if we're not trying to educate but we need to educate. What should we be educating people on?
Yeah. So let me clarify that statement.
Okay.
We do need to educate people, through our content and stuff like that. What I'm saying is they don't need us as salespeople when we get on calls with them and stuff like that to educate them, because there's so many options and availability for them to educate themselves through our websites, through the content that we're putting out on social media, through peers, through other people that they're getting recommendations from, so on and so forth, right? So the education process should come all through the content and the demand that you're creating in that content. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do have
So
a
when we're
follow-up to
having
that.
conversations, we're kind of moved beyond the education. Now we're just dealing with specific questions and stuff because we've done a good job with creating that demand through the educational stuff that we've provided already.
Okay. And so I just want to if I could just do a partial to that, because what I find just in my sales conversation, because I'm working with entrepreneurs that really they're inconsistent in their business development, right? The whole push through of their business. And what I find is that I have to educate them in terms of, this is what you need to be doing in your business so that you can build, grow, and scale your business. So I don't know, I guess sometimes that's hard to do. And maybe I'm saying it's hard and maybe it's not to do in my content, because I don't know if they really get it all through the content that I put out. But when I'm in a conversation with them and we're in this dialogue about their business and their challenges, then they go from deer in the headlight, like, I don't know what I'm doing, to like, oh my God, I understand. And this is why I need to work with you, kind of deal.
Yep.
So
when you're coaching and when you're putting your content out there, you're creating, you're solving problems around specific things that entrepreneurs have, right? So that's the education component. As they see you as a trusted expert on solving those problems through the content that you're creating, then it's going to more entice them to reach out to you to solve other things that they're going to have a problem with at the various stages of entrepreneurship that people go through.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's move. Thank you for the good question, Shireen. William Sims, you are up next.
Thank you. I think it might be helpful in some cases to think of content not only as a funnel, but as an ecosystem.
Yep.
And in that ecosystem, as Monty was saying, there's posts, there's video, there's email, there's blog, there's ads. And once someone is in your ecosystem, you want to keep them in your ecosystem. When they see your content, they're going to have an automated response, and then that's going to trigger an emotion. And then they're going to decide, do I want to stay in this ecosystem or do I want to leave this ecosystem? And with that in mind, I think one thing to keep in mind is if you're always posting how-to or tutorial content, as Charlene just said, showing people how to do something, that type of content then requires work. So if the only content that you're producing is content that requires people to work, that might dissuade them from staying in your ecosystem because they think, gosh, this is just too much. I just can't take it anymore. So that's why I think diversifying your content, as Monty was saying, is so important. You want to do how-to content, but you don't want to do solely how-to or tutorial content, in my opinion.
I agree with that completely. And I know some people, they have their niche and their expertise, and they will bang that home every single day. Whether it's leadership or it's, whatever it may be, it's just every single post is that niche, that niche, that niche, that niche, And what happens is you will only be able to work with people at the top of funnel, but you'll not necessarily work them through that funnel to you to talk about anything else, because they will tire of it. They will see your post one day and it's about leadership. The next day it's about leadership. The next day it's about leadership. And you almost give away everything that you have, so to speak, without solving a particular problem and giving them a reason to come to you. So you have to diversify it somewhat, create that personality around your content, and give people a reason to actually have a conversation with you other than just banging home one specific topic day in and day out.
I just think that's an excellent point. So if I could just say kudos to William, thank you for bringing that up, because personally, I do how-tos, but I get that it's boring, right? People say this is what people want to know. They want to know how to do something. But I do get, based off of what you said, William, that, and Monty, that whole diversification. So I need to go back and revisit my ecosystem.
Any other questions about, let's try to keep it on topic if we can, just to go deep. Questions on creating demand through content. Any questions? Pop that hand up. Wow, I guess Monty, you explained everything so well. There's no questions.
Do we have any in the chat?
There was, let's see, I saw one from Art here. I'll read it. Sorry, Art, it was a little bit confusing. So if you're still here and if I botch it, I'm sorry. So Art did ask in the chat, would it be good? And remember, panelists, this is any panelists, feel free to chime in here too. Art asks, would it be good to write posts that follow the sales funnel? 1, intro of who I am. 2, how I got into my biz. And 3, what my biz does. I'm not sure that I quite follow that, but I might be missing it. Anyone want to speak to that?
Well, I mean, I can speak to it if nobody else does. Yes, is the answer to that. Let people relate to your business and where you started and what you've been through and what you're doing now and so on and so forth, I think is where you're going with that. And I don't think Art is here anymore, but
he is actually just
maybe.
Yeah, he says one post introing myself.
Oh, Art, you are still on. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people do that, and I think that's fine. I mean, people have to resonate and learn who you are. So I wouldn't be afraid to do that.
Does anyone want to share briefly, because we have about 4 minutes left, instead of question, do you have anything you want to share, advice or tips or something that you do as a way to help people here with practical application for creating demand through content? Anyone want to share what you've been doing or your company has been doing?
Isaac, if I may, this may help Charlene with her rethinking of her content. Instead of how-to or tutorial, which we decided requires work, you could do a post that shares what someone should stop doing. Maybe a thought reversal post. And then it doesn't require work. And I think, geez, that was good information. Thank you so much, Charlene. I don't have to work, but I gained something from what you shared. Just a thought I'd toss out there.
Okay, I appreciate that. And it's so funny. And nothing against you, William, but my name is Charlene without the L.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I responded to somebody's post about that because she was like, they mispronounce my name all the time. And I said, I have the same thing. So anyway, I just want to say thank you on the reversal too.
I've got my glasses back on.
Corinne just gave you a reversal comment.
She told me to stop calling her by the wrong name.
But it's only because I just responded to a post on that. I thought that was amazing, right? So, but anyway, I love to stop doing, because I think that what you did was drop a really huge nugget. And I think because I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but like this is the top post that people want to see. They want a list, they want a how-to, they want all of this stuff. So you do that, but now you're bringing a reversal of something like an interruption in terms of how we put content out there. So I just want to say, thank you very much, because this is what I needed today, so I appreciate that.
Right.
if you're
Rebecca,
creating,
you had something you were going to say.
I was just going to say, just a very practical, I don't even like calling it technique, but sort of a strategy is, and not, you just referred to it, Shalene, did I say it right? I did, right? Is not a listicle
Without
necessarily,
the
but you have
L.
a list of a few things. You have a list of a few things, and then you ask for your audience to add on to that list. And maybe that's not purely educational, but it's just sort of brainstorming together with your anticipated audience. That always sort of evokes a response, I think, pretty well. And there might be sort of a subliminal, educational point there people haven't even thought about, but then they like adding to it and being part of it, and adding to the content.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vivica, you said something like what you've been doing has been you're in like the 6-month phase or 6 months of kind of this consistency. I would like to know, like, again, we have this immediate gratification. We expect to see, all these response and likes to our post. Do you find that there is a runway that we need to be prepared for and not get discouraged or like, oh my God, maybe this is not working before we have to shift to something different?
Yeah, let me just clarify. So that's what I was not referring to as like a 6-month runway at all. Sometimes it's actually literally a year or more, and sometimes it's just a month. What I mean is just the last 6 months, I've really been focused on communicating and creating engagement in the comments, and that's really changed my business and sort of the engagement that I'm getting. But yeah, sometimes it's a year-long cycle or even 2 years. Then an attorney will come back to me and they'll start seeing, because like Monty says, you're showing up on a regular basis consistently and you're on their radar. So then suddenly when they, if and when they need you or needed to speak to you about something, then they suddenly pop out of the blue 2 years later.
One thing too, and then let's button it up. If you are successfully creating demand through your content, I would encourage you to not let your conversion tracking and analytics fall through the cracks. And so that's a whole nother maybe thing to discuss, but I would make sure that you have a referral source conversions tracked from LinkedIn. You can put different UTM tracking parameters on your company page versus any posts that have links and anything that maybe comes from your profile, that kind of thing. So follow due diligence there, just so that you don't have this idea, wow, look at all the demand we're creating. And then you look at your analytics and go, oh, nothing, crickets. So just one last cherry on top. All right, so let's call it a meeting today. Stay tuned for next week, and we will see you all later.